Hello, this is Andrew Thake from Minds and Money. Delighted to be joining us today by Marc Sale, who's the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director at First Class Metals. Delighted to have you with us, Marc.
I'm delighted to be here, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Marc, an opening question. A lot of our viewers won't be aware of First Class Metals. Can you tell us a little bit about the company?
Of course I will. And it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people aren't fully cognizant of First Class Metals because we only listed in July. But however, since then, we have come to the fore, hit the ground running, all those nice euphemisms. We've put out quite a number of press releases. We're focused in Northern Ontario. We have 8 claim blocks in the Northern Ontario area. And we feel that we're slightly different from your average first list exploration company in so much as that we already have drill results on one of our properties.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Northern Ontario region and a little bit about as to what those areas are like as a mining district and jurisdiction?
They're prolific. I mean, some people say it's a go-to area of Ontario, of Canada. You have the Hemlo-Schreiber Greenstone Belt, which has its namesake Hemlo Mine, 23 million ounces, still producing. In the eastern end, there's the Sugar Zone, which is owned by Silver Lake Metals. In the western end, you have the new development by Metalum, the zinc project, and also near Marathon, the platinum project. So you can see that it's not just gold, it's diverse. And of course, up in the northeast, where our North Hemlo property is, you've got Palladium One's Tycho property, which has reported nearly double-digit nickel results. So there's a cornucopia of elements, metals that are being explored throughout that area of the Northern Hemlo Greenstone Belt.
And just for First Class Metals, what specific metals are you exploring for and expecting to find?
Well, we've got that same cornucopia on our properties, to be honest. Yes, there's I won't say a focus on gold, but gold is always the one that people sort of bring to the fore. Yes, recently with the battery metals, there's been an emphasis more on nickel, and we have nickel. As I say, on our earning with Palladium One, West Pickle Lake, there's outstanding massive sulfide, nickel sulfides on that. On one of our other properties, we have rare earth elements. So we've got it covered: base metals, battery metals, rare earths.
In terms of moving on from the geology to a little bit about yourself and your management team. First of all, I think our viewers would be keen to know a little bit about your background.
Well, I was last of the 10-pound POMs. I was exported to Australia in '79. I studied geology at the University of Western Australia under David Groves, an iconic figure in the industry. And after that, I've worked in Australasia, Australia, New Zealand, obviously, as well as parts of Indochina, Africa, North America, and South America. So I've got a diverse experience as far as cultural, geological situations are concerned. Yes, with an emphasis on gold, but also base metals and uranium.
And how about your management team?
Well, there's 3 executive directors. There's myself, there's James Knowles, who's the chairman, who did the brunt of the work for the listing, and I take my hat off to him, and Ayo Bodie, who's also an executive director and has a long history of financial deals in the metals, minerals and gas space.
In terms of your investor base, can you just talk us a little bit about who your key investors and shareholders are?
Well, there's no institutional shareholders. They're all PIs, high net worth individuals. A lot of them are, to use the euphemism of friends and family. Most of the people were locked in. I think nearly 60% of the people from the pre-IPO and the IPO were locked in for 9 months. One of the major shareholders, as you'll be aware, I wouldn't call them institutional, they're obviously not PI, is Power Metals. And we did a deal pre-IPO with Power Metals. They had a bunch of claims in Ontario. Their company policy is to build the claims up, then spin them off as subsidiaries. They realized that they weren't going to be able to do that and compete with us. So we had a powwow, and they decided to throw their claims into us pre-IPO. We valued the company then at $1 million, and they got 3 million, and they got $1 million in shares from us. They were diluted at the IPO, obviously, but they're probably our largest single shareholder at this stage.
Mm-hmm. One thing that investors listening in will be quite keen to hear a little bit more about is your ESG credentials. Can you tell us a little bit about what First Class Metals are doing in the field of ESG and sustainability?
Yes, I can answer that, and I willingly answer that. But I think we have to sort of be mindful of the fact that we're an exploration company, not a mining company. So
Sure.
Obviously that comes with a different remit and a different ability to mitigate any carbon footprint and offset it. However, foremost and most important for us as far as ESG is concerned is our relationship with the First Nations. As you're probably aware, in Ontario and throughout Canada, the First Nations, the Indigenous people, and I mean that descriptively, not disrespectfully, they have rights over the land, and as such, any exploration permit for drilling has to be okayed by the relevant First Nation band in your area. So we established from almost day one, face-to-face, be it Zoom initially, and then in person, when I was in the country, relationships with the 4 main First Nations that cover our exploration licenses. And I feel we have a good relationship in that regard. We've also, and I think this is possibly not the norm for a company of our size and early stage, we've also engaged a Sudbury-based environmental consultancy group who are writing, shall we say, the booklet for us on environmental and conservation protocols, how we go about our activities, probably for the more advanced activities such as drilling, stripping and drilling. However, they will still be useful and guidelines for the ground reconnaissance exploration work. So realistically, those are the 2 ways that we are acknowledging, addressing and helping, doing our bit as far as ESG is concerned. Yes, of course, we have all the other corporate governance things behind us, which we adhere to. But I think the social and environmental aspects of it are a particularly important part of that, as far as I'm concerned. Having worked in Australia, having worked in Papua New Guinea, having worked in Africa, South America, where these things are also very relevant.
Mm-hmm. So if investors do come aboard and go and invest in First Class Metals, what are the key milestones they can expect over the next 6 to 12 months?
Given that we're just about to finish the field season and it might not start again until late April next year, there might not be a lot of pure exploration activity. However, milestones, we're expecting more results from West Pickle Lake. And it might well be, as that's a helicopter supported drilling program, that might well drill on past the end of the conventional field season. So results from West Pickle Lake, which, as you know, has got startling nickel copper sulfides so far reported. Also, we will be undertaking a deep dive in the historical data for the Sunbeam mine, which we recently acquired, in order that we can again hit the ground running in the field season as far as ground exploration. I would also add in an addendum to what I mentioned earlier about First Nations and permits, we have an active drilling permit for Sunbeam. So once we have reviewed the historic information, it's quite feasible that sometime next year we will be drilling on the Sunbeam project. In the meantime, of course, we've got all the results. We've got 200 rock samples from North Hemlo, our flagship property, still in the lab. So I'm quietly confident some of those will turn up a burgeoning drill target, shall I say. I have to be careful what I say, obviously, here. But and again, we'll be advancing the exploration permit with the First Nations on North Hemlo in order that once we have a target, we're well positioned to do something about it.
So if you had to summarize to an investor that was listening in, you've obviously got a great cornucopia of opportunity. You're in a great mining jurisdiction, great management team. Is there anything else to add and you've also got great relations with the First Nations? Is that the sort of key things that kind of give you and First Class Metals your unique selling point that makes you stand out a little bit out from other similar opportunities?
I think you pretty much hit it on the head there, Andrew, though I would add one other thing, and that is the wherewithal to do that. Yes, we've got the properties, yes, we've got the management, and we've got the funding. So we are looking at flow through in Canada, but meantime, we have sufficient funds with the deal we did with Simpsons on Sunbeam to fund our program for most of next field season. I'll put a caveat in there that if we do start drilling, obviously that gets very expensive. But as it stands, we've got the management, we've got the properties, and we've got the wherewithal to advance them.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on Minds Money TV today, Marc. That was Marc Sale, Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director at First Class Metals.